I don't wanna go to work, I just wanna chill and play all day. Look 'em dead in the face and say, I wish I could just be still asleep while you work.
Welcome to the Jobs Blow podcast with Briana and Josh.
The podcast for dreamers with day jobs.
We're so glad to be back here in New York City at the Comic Strip Live for yet another episode.
Yes, and remember, while this podcast was born out of Josh and I's frustrations, we're here to inspire those of you who are pursuing your dream jobs as we pursue ours.
That's true. How you doing, Briana?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Josh?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's hot.
It is hot.
It is August hot.
Yes, but this might be airing in September.
That's a good point. It's cooler now. Now it's cooler.
How about that fall weather? It's so lovely.
It's like humid. It's the humidity. This is our humid month. Like, you know, if they were going to do a history of the world 200,000 years from now, and then in August in New York City, it would get balls hot, humid.
I think July and August are pretty brutal.
Maybe.
I could, as having been pregnant, really big and pregnant in those months, yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was big and pregnant.
Yeah.
All right, so you know what? We're going to cut our little BS at the top here, usually, because we have a super special guest, a super special friend who came and hung out. Josh was a little late today, and he hung out the entire time.
He did.
You want to do the introduction? You're better at the introductions.
Okay, well, first of all, the name of today's show is A Career He Didn't Dream of. And our guest is, there are so many ways that I could describe him, but I'm just going to go with two-time Tony Award-winning actor, singer, and guitarist, Michael Cerveris. Did I say your last name okay?
You did.
Oh, my God. You don't know the stress I've been under with that name. P. Diddy gave him the Tony and said Cerveris.
Cerveris, I think, yeah.
Cerveris.
Yeah. I feel like that's what you get the most, right? Would that be the most common mistake?
Yeah, I think, and I have friends who I have known for a long time who will tell people who are pronouncing it correctly as Cerveris that they're like, no, he's a friend of mine. It's Cerveris. Trust me. I'm like, yeah, no, we've known each other for a long time. You still don't have my name right.
But you know what I think about
Cerveris?
Cerveris throws an A in there too,
but it also,
which doesn't even have an A in it.
But it feels really powerful, and I feel like
Cerveris.
Yes, and I just feel like that goes with like your personality. You know, like I don't know, two-time Tony Award-winning actor.
I think the problem is it comes from my family's original Italian name. My grandfather, it was Cerverizzo, and spelled the same, Cerveri, and then ZZO. And when he got out of the army, the American army, you could change your name without a lot of hassle, and his buddies in the army convinced him that he'd have an easier time getting a job without a vowel at the end of his name, emphasizing his immigrantness. So he dropped the ZZO off and put an S on, like that was going to make it like Jackson, or like.
That's
and
funny.
it's only made it more confusing. It looks. I mean, I had somebody come up to me once. After Tommy from the Greek American Appreciation Society, like so proud to have a Greek American on Broadway, and wanted to welcome me to the organization.
I was going to say it sounded Greek. Right?
It's like I'm really honored, but I'm not even a little bit Greek. But
my God, that's hilarious.
That's right. Well, I wish someone would have talked to my dad leaving the army and said, "Oh, Hyman, why don't you change that name to anything else? How about Cerveris? That would have worked for us.
It's free. It's available."
Did you ever think about changing the spelling, because it's S-C-R, Cerveris would have maybe helped? Did you ever think about that?
I didn't, but I had an uncle who actually did change it to, because another version that I get sometimes is service.
Service.
He changed it to Cervis.
Cervis, right.
And I don't know that really, I mean, I guess there's sort of, that probably doesn't get mixed up.
Well, then you're getting closer to cervix, at which point you're back
right,
to Hyman.
Right, now you're with Hyman. I was thinking the same thing. This is an anatomy show.
Lane, guys.
And he was an oral surgeon, so that would have been very confusing.
There you go.
And the Jobs Blow podcast. And we're back.
So anyway, Michael is here today because a few weeks ago, just by chance, I just found an old photo of us from 1993. This predates Jack's birth, FYI.
Get out of here.
Yes. So I met Michael at a holiday party for BMG.
Wow.
He was there because he just started playing Tommy on Broadway, and an AP photographer who was hanging out was like, "You should meet this guy. He's Tommy on Broadway." Threw me in a picture with him. And as I was saying to Michael before, this was texting photos. Right. This guy actually mailed me this picture at a later date.
So we should have him next on the podcast.
Well, according to Michael, he's still around. The guy was in his 60s back then. Yeah. So
wow,
he's got to be in his 80s.
So what the real lesson here is that if we contact you because we've had some kind of interaction with you before, please answer us and be on the podcast.
Right. Well, so wait, did I say that I tweeted
Debbie
this?
Gibson, would you just answer, please, already?
So did I mention that I tweeted that photo?
Did you really?
I tweeted it at Michael, and I said, "It looks like you've done really well for yourself these past 25 years." And I wasn't sure he would respond, and he responded to my @JobsBlow when I had sent it from my personal, and I was like, "Well, you started this now. Come on my show, please." And here he is.
There it is. And to have a New York actor, an actor in general, who's had a long career, it is definitely an honor for us. It also is along the lines of the Job Blow podcast, which is to show that pursuing that dream for over a long period of time can happen.
Right.
Some of our guests have been pursuing dreams, but it's only been a couple of years, or Tracy was only a couple, 1 year, right? A couple of months. So that we're glad to have you on here in that respect too,
cool.
and we'd love to hear your story.
Right, and just playing off the name, because I did name it A Career He Didn't Dream of because of something you had said.
Right.
So can you just kind of expand
Say it
on
again?
it? Well, no, just why you said that.
Well, because I kind of, I grew up in an artistic household, and in a lot of ways it kind of makes perfect sense that I've ended up doing the kind of things that I have. But to me, it wasn't I didn't have that dream that every kid has of being on Broadway. And, I watched the Tony Awards as a kid growing up, but I never watched them thinking, oh, one day I'll be there. It just was like a thing that I did. Like Little League was a thing that I did. Right. And at a certain point, I stopped doing baseball and started doing more theater. But I spent the longest time searching for what I was going to do. When I went to college, I went to a college that had a good theater program, but I specifically didn't go to a college that was just, like NYU, where I was only going to do acting, because I felt like I'm still, I've always done it, but I'm not sure that that's what I want to do. So I'd spent my time looking for what that was. And
you grew up in a very artistic household.
Yeah, I did. Not theatrical. My dad was a classical musician, pianist, and my mom was a modern dancer, and they met at Juilliard, and then they both decided not to have performing careers and started a family. My dad went into academia and taught at universities, and my mom continued to teach for a while too. But I had an idea of what an artistic life was, and the fact that they had chosen not to pursue performing careers also, I think affected me. And I had a healthy regard for what it is to try to have a career as an artist, and how challenging it is and how difficult it is and the sacrifices you have to make, which is probably part of why I was kind of slow to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. But I think when I said that it was, a career that I never dreamed of, I think in addition to that, I was also talking about the kind of career it's been, and the kinds of jobs that I've done, and the kinds of roles that I've gotten to do. And when I look backwards, I can trace how I got to this thing from that, and this experience led me to this, and this opportunity led me to that. But looking at it from the the other side of it, like looking at my career in the future, I just didn't have the imagination to imagine a career like what.
6 Tony nominations and 2 wins.
Didn't have that.
Were you looked at did you look at yourself this way, or did other people look at you as, this guy is so super talented at a young age that you knew you were good at it and you just weren't sure you wanted to do it? Or was it something you kind of, had to work to become, great at for yourself?
No, I always and it's not a past tense thing. Like, I have always doubted myself and questioned myself, and my fear that I, didn't have what it took, I think, has been half of what was the motivation to keep me going. I do remember having a teacher in a summer program at North Carolina School of the Arts who told me I didn't have enough ambition to make it as an actor. And the thing was, I agreed with him, because I didn't, and I still feel like I've succeeded in spite of myself so much of the time.
What age was that?
This was in, like, it must have been high school or junior high.
Josh, doesn't that remind you of what Matt, the chef, said?
Yeah.
That he said the same thing. Like, he just kind of kept going, and he kept falling into it, kind of. Mentors and.
Yeah, I think that's been my experience a lot, and I didn't, like I said, I wasn't one of those kids who was like, I love the theater, and I dream of a career as an actor, and I mean, I did, and I kept putting one foot in front of the other, and going forward and not giving up despite being awfully close to it, any number of times, and feeling like every job that ends is the last job I'll ever have.
How am I going to get another
still feel
one?
like that. Yeah. Like, I'm going to, sooner or later, they're going to figure this out and stop hiring me. So,
Or you go out for something and you're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go out. If they don't want me, they don't want me. And then that's it. I'm done. And then they want you.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, I'll do this job.
I'll do this one.
I'll do this job.
All right. So we're going to go into HR questions.
Yes.
So, Michael, what is your current job title? And you can tell us about your latest project.
Give us a couple of highlights so that everybody
along the way.
Anything.
Well, I guess my current job title is television actor. My most current job title is streaming service actor
on
Mindhunter on Netflix. David Fincher's Mindhunter,
which is a fabulous show. If you have not seen it, definitely marathon season 1.
Yeah.
August 16th.
Yeah, which will be in the past.
It'll be in the past,
yeah.
maybe.
I haven't seen it yet, but Brianna's texts at 2 a.m. that I should be watching it are super motivating.
Yeah, and 2 o'clock in the morning is the best time to watch
Yes,
it too, because
definitely.
then you can binge the whole thing because you won't be able to sleep.
That's the only time I have to watch television
me
these
too.
days. But that's another story.
And I always end up watching like the worst thing to be watching at 2 o'clock in the
I
morning.
had a whole slate of stuff to watch the other night, and I watched 2 hours of NBC Dateline about some murder, about people that I've never heard of and will never think about
those
again.
Those Dateline, they'll get you though. They'll get you. Mindhunter is essentially a Dateline
It is,
true.
yeah. Right.
brought to life.
Yeah. And it's based on historical fact. It's based on the guys who John Douglas, who wrote the book that it's based on, created the FBI's behavioral science unit, and they coined the term serial killer to describe the people that they were studying and learning from, and this new season is going to be focuses a lot on the Atlanta child murders. Which
always freaks me out.
Yeah,
and which I think I'm anticipating and hoping that it's going to bring a lot of attention to that.
That was never solved, was it?
Well, I mean, technically it was, officially it was, but I think it's become clear that it wasn't entirely solved. Like Wayne Williams probably killed some people, but not all of them. Yeah.
Wow. Give us some, just real quick. So, Tommy, you won for Tommy.
Yeah, no. I didn't.
You didn't. I'm sorry.
But he got nominated right out of the gate.
Yeah, my first time on Broadway was Tommy, and I was nominated then, didn't win, and I've said a number of times, I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because I immediately, after all of the hubbub and the dizzying kind of distractingness of that, I was disappointed probably for, I don't know, like 30 seconds to a minute, standing in the wings backstage, because of the way when the category was in the night and when our performance was. Our performance was right before my category,
right?
So there was no time to go back out into the seats again and put my tuxedo on and stuff.
Right.
So I was standing backstage in costume, but I was determined. I was wearing a wig in the show,
Right.
and I was determined not to. If I was going to get this award, I didn't want to go out and be on national television like wearing this wig and being this
Right.
character. So we had this whole thing worked out, and the costume people and wig people like took the wig off really quickly. I threw on a different shirt. I was going to leave the white jeans on because it was too long to take my pants off, and something happened, and the wig got caught in the mic cord, and they couldn't get it out. And so when they're doing the flashes of, when they read the nominees'
Oh,
names and
geez.
they show the pictures, and I was standing backstage along with Paul Candell, who I was in the show with. He played Uncle Ernie because he was nominated also. So the two of us are backstage, and I'm standing there knowing that my wig is hanging from a wire down behind my back. And if my only real thought at that moment was, if they call my name, I'm going to have to walk out there with this rat hanging behind my back.
But that's rock and roll, baby, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, they're all on the radio. They're like, give it to someone else. Give it to someone else.
He's a hot mess
anybody.
back here.
What year-
He
that
doesn't
was
need it his first time out. That was when I met him, so it was
98,
94.
94.
Right?
Well, that was 93, I guess.
So if you opened in April of 93, by June, you were already nominated and at the Tonys?
that's the reason why you notice the second and third weeks of April are just chock-a-block with shows opening, because they all want to open at the last possible minute to qualify for the Tonys, so that they don't have to run for a long time before and they're on everybody's minds. And then the shows open in the third week of April. The nominations come out at the end of April or beginning of May, and then
Right.
the awards are.
It's like a 4-week audition based for the.
Yeah, pretty
Wow.
much.
So we opened Drunk Shakespeare at the end of March. So we're still waiting for our Tony nomination. It's been 5 years.
Sometimes
could come.
It takes a while
This
to
could be it.
process the applications.
Yeah,
Well,
you know what it is.
And speaking of, so you've been in 10 shows, right?
10 Broadway shows.
10
yeah.
Broadway shows, 6 nominations.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So your first show you were nominated.
Mm-hmm.
What about the second show?
The second show was Assassins, and I was nominated for that.
So wait, you went from 93 to 2004?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you doing something else?
Oh no! Actually, you know what? I did another Broadway show in between. I did Titanic, but I wasn't nominated for that.
Okay. So Tommy was
97.
one. You got nominated. You didn't get nominated for Titanic. Then Assassins, you were nominated and won your first Tony.
Yes.
And then what was next for the fourth?
The next nomination was, I guess,
Amazing.
Love Music, possibly. Was that before Sweeney Todd?
You were nominated for Sweeney Todd.
I was
too?
nominated for Sweeney Todd. I was nominated for Love Music, which is about Hal. That was when I got to work with Hal Prince. It's about Kurt Weill and Lotte Lenya. And I was nominated for how many is that? 4?
5.
That's 5. And then Fun Home.
Which you won.
Fun Home.
Yeah.
So that was your
Right.
second.
Yeah.
And that's the last show you've.
That's the
last
last
one.
Broadway show I've done.
Okay.
Fun Home.
All right.
And maybe the last Broadway show I'll ever
See?
do.
He's like, yeah, that's it. That's the last one. And then Mindhunter.
They figured me out.
And then if you check out Michael's IMDb too, it's just like chock full listed of just every show, so many different appearances and movies. It's just, it's a full career. I mean, it's busy. It feels busy. Did it feel busy?
Yeah, it felt busy, especially the theatrical stuff, because when you're doing a run of a Broadway show, you're working 6 days a week, doing 8 performances in those 6 days. You get 1 day a week off for, if you're lucky, years at a time, and then when you're doing TV and film stuff, it's strange. It's hard work, but it's an entirely different kind of hard work.
Right.
And I'll sometimes be on a set and someone will say, wow, that was a long day. And you can have 14, 16-hour days.
Sure.
But somehow the work is like, try doing 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, emotionally,
that's
I
hard
think
work.
that has to just suck the
Just
life out
but
of you,
also
especially when you're
rest,
playing an
eating,
assassin, or
Well, the kinds of roles I tend to get are the sort of, allow me to disembowel myself
Yeah,
for
Sweeney
you
Todd.
this evening. And
I mean,
yeah,
Right.
wow.
yeah, it kind of.
Well, can I ask you a question like that, just in regards to long runs of contracts?
Yeah.
So, whether you're, I mean, I assume it's a big assumption on purpose, but you're one of the leads of a show, and do they give you the freedom to say, okay, I'm going to take a break to take a TV role or a movie role and come back and keep doing it, and an understudy will take it on, or is it the kind of thing where like, okay, if you're leaving, we're moving on to the next guy?
It depends. I mean, contractually, union-wise, everybody gets 1 week every 6 months vacation time.
Right.
And some people can have things worked into their contracts that allow you to take time off to do other stuff.
Okay.
I think it depends on when in the run you are. Like if you've already done a year or 2 years,
Right.
then I think you can start to build in more freedom to do that kind of
Do
thing.
other things.
It can also it can depend on, in some ways, the more important you are to the production, like the bigger your part is,
Right.
the harder it is for them to let you go do other stuff because people are, in theory, coming to see you.
Right.
Or it's funny, people may not know you, may not have really been coming to see you, but when they learn that the regular person isn't on,
You get upset.
they get upset thinking, oh, I'm getting the second tier thing, which is not true at all.
No.
And they don't know or care because they don't know you any more than they know
Right.
your understudy.
No, but you have to admit, when you go to a Broadway show
Right.
and you get those little pieces of paper and you're like, oh damn, what's this gonna be?
Yeah.
Just
And
one
then
time,
sometimes
I'd
it's
like to print
wow.
out 10,000 of those that say my name and just shove
Just
them
slip
into
them
all
in.
the things.
So, Michael, back to the HR questions.
Yes.
So, I know you said it's a career that you didn't dream of. Is this your dream career?
Or what was a dream? Was there a dream of something else along the way ever?
Well, I mean, there were jobs that I, imagined having. I think, when I was really little, I remember telling my parents that I wanted to be a truck driver, and I think that alarmed them a lot. I think it was probably on a long trip when we were sitting in the back of the station
Preparing
wagon.
you for your serial killer roles.
Exactly.
You watched a lot of Stallone Over the Top.
No, BJ and the Bear, baby.
Convoy.
Or what was the Clint Eastwood and his orangutan?
Oh, that
Oh.
was Cannibal. Was that Cannibal?
Every Which Way But Loose.
Every Which Way But Loose,
That's
yeah.
right, listen.
Don't mess with me in 80s trivia. I got you every
Do
time.
not. Yeah, we know.
No, but I do remember at one time really thinking I loved Jacques Cousteau. We used to watch those specials all the time, and I thought I think that's what I want to do. I want to hang out with Jacques Cousteau, and then I realized, well, what I really want to do, I think, is just go swimming with whales and do that kind of. I don't want to do all the biology and science that it's going to be necessary for me to become an oceanographer. And then I realized John Denver got to go on the Calypso and write a song about it and be on episodes, and he got to swim with the dolphins and stuff. So I thought maybe the thing to do is try to be like a
John
famous
Denver.
actor or musician, and
then
then
get
I'll
all the
get all the free
Was
ride.
that part of the John Denver show? Because remember, he had a
Maybe
variety show.
I felt like he went on a Jacques Cousteau expedition,
Okay.
but
Growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist and a
Yeah.
dolphin trainer, so I'm just hoping that I continue to grow up to be you. Is what I'm hoping.
It could happen. It can happen.
It could happen. So there's another question that we ask
Okay.
that you can answer in any way you want. It's tell us a job that blew. It could be a specific job or a moment at a job.
or a person who just made it bad.
Suck.
Well, I had some really weird, I'm sure you guys can relate, the weird jobs when I was starting out and just got to New York.
Right.
I had a job that didn't.
From where? From New York,
I grew up in West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, in Huntington, West Virginia. And I came here after college, and I had, I did the rounds of working in, every restaurant on the Upper East Side and, places with names
It's good
like.
to be back. It's good to be back.
Yeah. Cockeyed Clams is no longer here.
Oh,
but,
jeez.
Oh, good old.
I would not.
there.
I don't think I'd eat a clam from cockeyed clams.
yeah, it's not really
No.
selling themselves.
Nothing like an 82nd Street cockeyed clam.
Yowza.
But I used to get really panicky at some of these jobs. I don't think I was a terribly good waiter, and I would just like freak myself out thinking, I can't do this job forever. This can't be my life. I can't do this. And I would like quit and then have to get a job again and just find another crappy restaurant to be. And I did work in some good ones and some nice ones, but
what did you like? What was the thing that you liked least? The customer service part of it, or like just?
I think it was the
food delivery.
It was the stress of like having things that I just thought I was going to get wrong all the time, like mixing up an order or spilling stuff or forgetting things, and I wasn't able to just relax. I actually think now I would enjoy being. I said this to a friend of mine recently, and they were like, "You would not be a good waiter." I'm like, no, I think I'd be really good. I'd be like really, just sociable.
Now you're
and,
just
like,
romanticizing it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You want to talk to people about why they want the eggplant parm.
Exactly.
That's
Share
funny.
the experience with them.
That's funny.
But I had some other weird jobs in that time too. I remember one bizarre job. I don't know that it blew exactly, but it was weird. It was a time when not every Xerox machine did collating, and so the job was just collating. And I was in this room in some kind of sub basement with like 3 other actor, comedian, musician people. Wow. And we were surrounding this table that had like 15 stacks about 3 feet high of single sheet paper. And our job was just to walk around in a circle and take one page off the top of each thing.
That's essentially entry-level PR work that you're describing.
Really? That it still exists?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, not as much when we did press kits, when there was a lot of paper involved, more so than I think now.
Did you write that on a resume? I have the skill of collating.
Well, like any
500 sheets of paper.
resume, it's like prepared communication for distribution.
Type 70 words a minute, collate 400 packets.
Yeah, you try not to use words like collate, collaborate, liaison.
Liaise.
Liaise.
Well, that must have been a fun basement. Comics, musicians.
Right. Did any of them?
Yeah, it was
Do we
cool.
know? Are any of them Tony nominated
I wonder.
Oscar winners?
I wonder. I don't think I knew them then, and I don't know them now.
So this is what the next kind of part of all this is. We want to know like your kind of evolution.
Well, I can tell you one job that really.
Oh wait, we want to know that. Yeah, make Josh and I feel better.
This is one of my most embarrassing job experiences. I got a job through a friend in at Morgan Stanley, I think it was the big investment firm, and it could have been a great job. It was doing the executive, breakfast service. So it meant getting up really early, which was hard for somebody trying to do stage acting. But you had to go. There was a uniform, and you basically just sort of prepared the morning breakfast service room, and then delivered danishes and coffees to the boardrooms for breakfast meetings.
Right.
And then you were done by like 11 in the morning. So you'd had your day's work and you had the rest of your day free to audition, because that was always the challenge. Like, how do you keep a job that you can still audition, and if you get an acting job, you can still do it at night without having to quit your day job.
Right.
So this seemed like it was going to be a dream job, and this guy, happened to know that they had an opening, and he vouched for me. So I come in, and the first day is kind of my training and actual first day of work all at once. They give me a uniform, because you have to have a uniform, but it's not my size. It's just the only uniform they have available.
Too small?
So I'm like, no, I'm
big?
swimming in it.
Oh, jeez.
And my hair was down to my shoulders at the time, and they're like, we'll address that later. And so,
if they could see you now.
yeah, exactly. And so I go and I start, and it's interesting and weird, because the corporate environment, I knew people that I graduated with who went into the corporate world at that level and were making like $40,000 their first year out of school, but were working 18 hours a day, and
which of course for Jack, he's like 40,000. That's terrible.
Yeah,
but back then we were like, woo, I want 40,000.
I didn't even know you could count that high. I didn't know that was a number.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then.
To be honest, I'd still take 40,000.
I would take 40,000. I don't know I would take it too. What are we talking about?
What are we kidding? So so it was all fine, but it was fascinating because it was like, these are the guys, they want, everything had to be exactly the same. Like literally the newspapers had to be lined up within like a fraction of an inch of each other. And there were because this was, the 80s, there were cigarette cases, like crystal cigarette cases, but you had to wear gloves to polish them because you couldn't leave any finger marks on them.
Were there lines of cocaine just because it was the 80s?
There must have been. Maybe I would have learned that on the second day, possibly. And you would go in to these boardrooms, and it really felt like this is the heart of the evil empire. This is where the decisions that are going to ruin the lives of small countries around the world are actually made. Mm-hmm. And these guys need to not have anything disruptive because, the fate of nations depends on their choices and, more important, corporations.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I'm not sure I like even contributing to this by delivering Danishes, but I need the job, and so I'm going to, put my head down and just do this. So the day goes fine, and I have, debating with myself about the ethics of participating in it. And the last thing I need to do that day, before I'm almost done, and my boss says, I need you to take this tray of Danishes and tea and coffee down to this one boardroom. And they had multiple floors, so you had to take the elevator down 3 floors, walk through a lobby to another bank of elevators, and go down to some other floors. And I didn't know that there was an option to put stuff on the cart. I just was handed this tray, and so I just took it. So it's pretty heavy when I pick it up, but I don't think anything about it. But as time is going on, it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. I get off the elevator, and I'm going around through the lobby, which turns out to be the only lobby that isn't carpeted, that has like hardwood floor.
Oh, no.
And I just take one misstep, and the tray starts to go, and the coffee and tea things hit the wall, and there's spill in this kind of, artistic arc all down the wall, and it makes this huge crash, and everything, collapses, and all of the secretaries and sub-secretaries all like poke their heads out of their cubicles looking at this, long-haired guy swimming in his uniform, and they're all looking at me like, you are so fucked, buddy. Like, this is just like, and the secretary on the floor, the receptionist says, I turned to her, I said, what should I do? Meaning, like, should I clean this up or what? And she said, I think you should get them their coffee. So like, okay. So I go back up and I tell my boss what happened. And to his credit, he just said his first reaction was like, are you okay? Did you burn yourself? Are you all right? And I said,
unlike
no, I'm
me
fine.
When Josh gets in fender benders.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. And he said, okay, well, here, use the cart to take it down. So I go back down, and the maintenance people are cleaning it up, and you would think that I had slaughtered a child in the lobby. The reaction, the appalled responses on people's faces. And as I'm walking by all of these sub-secretaries, they're all looking at me with disdain and condemnation. And I'm just really trying not to laugh because it's just so ridiculous.
I really wonder if those ladies have any idea of who you are now.
And man.
Like, isn't that funny? Like, remember that guy that's made that huge mess? He won a Tony last night.
Because it does seem like it was the kind of thing that never happened there, and probably was memorable.
It couldn't have happened to a better group of people. Well done, Michael.
From an actor's perspective, you were probably like, I can do comedy. I didn't realize.
Who knew?
All this drama training. But in seriousness, did that, because I'm thinking the whole time you're telling this story, and just the ridiculousness of it. And that's something that Briana and I talk about sometimes, maybe why we just find ourselves in these situations all the time. We get into these jobs and we're like, I cannot smoke this, drink this Kool-Aid. I just can't. It's ridiculous.
Ethics is my problem.
Do you ever reflect back on that and the ridiculousness of that, or just as a learning lesson for yourself to be like, I'm not going to do that kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I felt weird enough about it already, but I also felt like embarrassed that I had, spilled stuff and made such a mess. And, so I did feel bad for not doing my job better.
But you didn't burn anyone. So
but I didn't burn anyone. Well, and then, I went home, and the next day I thought about it overnight, and I thought, this job's not for me. I can't. Right. That environment, it's just not cool. And so I called in the morning and said, I'm not going to come in today. And the boss said, yeah, that's probably just as well, because that part of the wallpaper you spilled on was linen wallpaper that's like 5,000,
oh my
in
God.
today's dollars, like 10 grand per
Right.
panel. So, probably just as well you don't come back.
Well, who the hell needs that kind of wallpaper?
That was my thought. It's like, I don't want to work for a place
What
that's
nation
gonna
did you
pay.
kill for that
Exactly.
wallpaper?
That was my
No.
feeling. So, but I do think about that and have thought about that in times since then. Like, do I need to consider what it is that I'm a part of, serving.
Right.
Well, I interviewed once, I'm going to tell a quick story, for a nonprofit that I really, really wanted to work for. And during the interview, the guy said to me, you're going to have to go down and have breakfast with guys on Wall Street, and they're going to be totally inappropriate with you, and you're just going to have to tolerate it. And I was like, what? Like, do you know me? Could you imagine, Josh?
Yeah.
Like, there'd be no way.
If I was your rep that day, I would have been like, we're going to have to go with another offer.
She's out.
I'm taking her out.
But it was heartbreaking because literally, and I'll tell you off the mic which one it was, I really was passionate about working for this organization, and I was just like, I can't. There's no way.
I have the older I get, the harder it is for me to swallow the bullshit. I just can't. I can't do it.
Yeah. Well,
But I also have learned to be more, look at my assumptions about what's bullshit and what's not too, and kind of get over some of my, presumptions sometimes too.
Get your own ass out of the way.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
totally.
Okay, no, that's good advice, actually. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So in your journey of, coming to New York and getting these great Broadway opportunities and just keep getting nominated, which, by the way, so fucking cool. I mean, it's cool. I mean, look, win or no win, to sit there and say that the work that I'm doing is being appreciated by my community and my peers. I mean, I think a lot of actors, comedians would rather that than, necessarily like the millions of dollars, which is also like just completely arbitrary. To sit there and say that my community appreciates me and thinks what I'm doing is great, I feel like is the greatest compliment you can get.
It really is true, and that when people say it's an honor just to be nominated, it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true, and it's because of exactly what you're saying. That I think everybody feels like they just want to be acknowledged for what they're doing, not celebrated, not like carried down the street, in a parade, just like somebody going, "Hey, man, I saw what you did," and that can be like, I read your report about this thing. I can tell you took a lot of time to do it, and I really appreciate it.
It goes
well
a long
done.
way.
yeah, and
It
Michael,
goes a
these are
long
actual
way.
conversations in corporate America where you have to tell people that they should do this.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
you know what you should do? You should send your junior staff a note just letting them know that they did a good job. Like, things that just seem really obvious, but aren't always.
So talk a little bit on your kind of, you kind of joked about it before, like, oh, this is the last job I'm going to get, and then another one comes. Like, talk a little bit about that and what it is, because from the outside you're a successful actor, but from the inside, maybe, I don't know, how do you look at it? And talk us through maybe some of that mental, strength you need to have.
Well, I think it's, when with most stuff, if you're looking at the destination, then you're spending all of your time looking at how far you are from wherever you think that is. And if your focus is on where am I standing today, can I take a step in a direction, whether I even know where I'm going or not, but can I just take a step today so I'm a little in a different place tomorrow than I am right now, great. And what will that step be? And, and it could take me in all kinds of different directions too, but at least I won't be spending more time looking at how far I am from something than where I can get to today.
And in your journey, so when you were nominated the first 3 times or whatever, what did that mean for your career? Like, do you still have to audition, or is it kind of like, we want you for this role?
Well, now at this point now with stage things, it's more often, either an offer or an invitation to sit down with a director and discuss a part. And, they may be having that conversation with several different actors, but there's a kind of assumption that, we know your abilities, we know your work, and, we know that you could play it, and we just need to choose which of the people that we think could play it we want to play it for us. Or other times it's just like, we know we would like you to do this, and if you want to, then great. That's the times that wouldn't be true would be maybe a director who is not from America, hasn't seen me do stuff before, or if it's a role that nobody has seen me do anything like it before, so they might want some kind of more certain feeling that I could actually do that particular thing. And then it gets tricky, and it becomes like a weird status thing. It's like, he's offer only is how it's described, and sometimes I might even say, you know what, I would like to go in for this person because I think they probably think that I'm, not the right person for it, and I would like to be, so I'd like to, to prove to them that I am. But with television and film, I am like right back there, kind of with everybody, groveling for a job, which is my definition of acting.
On cameras.
Yeah, just, putting myself on tape and sending it in, and,
I hate the on tape.
Well,
I hate it.
I'm like 50-50 because part of me feels like I get to send the take that I like, but that means that I spend 5,000 hours on an audition and then watching myself be shitty in like 99% of them, and then the one I'm like, okay, I don't hate this entirely, I'll send this one.
But it's like choosing a headshot. You choose a headshot that everyone else is like, no, I hate that headshot.
Yeah.
Like, don't you, as a stage actor too, because I love being on stage. To me, like, put me in the moment. Rehearsing is one thing, put me in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, if I know I'm walking into that audition, I've been rehearsing all day, got my lines down, action, let me do what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And to me, I'd almost I would rather do that than work with the lighting and then the reader messed up. And
and then you also have the chance for them to go, great, but they're the ones who are talking to the director, or they are the director, and they know what they want, or they see something in what you did, but they want to, see a little more of this. Right. Otherwise, you're right. You are just like rolling the dice, and you're going, okay, this is my guess with no help from you about what it is you want.
Right.
And I also feel like a lot of my, I feel like being in the room is important in some intangible way too, just to like get a sense of the person that you are, because otherwise it feels entirely just about whether you've guessed accurately and happen to have the right face for whatever it is they were imagining.
Right.
Whereas if you're in the room, I think you can leave the room and the conversation can be, I feel like he was kind of right, but, I think, there wasn't this thing exactly, but I just got a good vibe from him, and I think either we'd like to bring him back in and ask him to try something else, or I feel like because at the end of the day, I think the smart directors and people, John Doyle, who directed Sweeney Todd, is definitely like this. He just wants to have people in the room that he wants to be in the room with. Right. And he'll make something with those people. Yeah. It was the same thing. I did a tour playing guitar for Bob Mould, who is this, punk rock, indie rock, alternative rock icon. And, we had met, and he'd sat in with my band once, and so he had heard me play guitar a little bit, but we'd been friends for a while, and he asked me at one point if I wanted to tour with him and just play guitar on this tour, and I'd never done anything like that before, and I said, well, do you want me to like audition? I mean, I'd be happy to play. And he said, my songs aren't rocket science, like I know you play well enough to play these songs. And frankly, at this point in my career, he'd had Husker Du and he'd had Sugar, and he'd toured the world with these bands, and he's like, at this point, I just want to be with friends, 4 guys that I can be in a car with 9 hours a day, because that's what that's what the job actually is, not the hour and a half on stage. It's the other stuff.
Well, and we always talk about how working with good people makes such a difference in the job itself.
People you trust, people that trust
right.
you.
But back to what you said, though, about it's different when you go for roles in TV and movies.
Yeah.
Because I think about that a lot. It's funny because unless you're really familiar with Broadway, you don't recognize the faces that those of us who are really familiar do. So when I'm watching a Law and Order, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Michael from Tommy or
Criminal
whatever.
Intent. They actually use a lot of Broadway.
But I'm saying you're like, why is he playing a dead body, or why is he not like doing something more? Because it's just.
Frankly, I don't really understand how anybody develops any kind of ego, because there are so many opportunities to have it just like whittled away at every turn.
Right.
I'm very much aware where I am in the food chain in television and film, and where I am in stage, and also aware that those things, it's not a one-way ladder either. Like you're as big as your last thing, and if there's been time in between, then other people move up and move down, and that's why.
Do you think it helps to be conscious of where you are in any of these jobs, not just performance?
I think it helps you keep your ego in check and keep your focus on the important things, to occasionally be reminded of the way it is. I see people all the time who struggle, and I have absolutely in time, and probably will again at some point, be frustrated about, last year I was at this party and like I didn't have to wait to come in at all, and this year I'm not on the list, and I'm probably not even getting in, and I've seen people. I don't go to parties really, but I've seen that kind of thing happen where you realize that 1 month is one thing and one's another. Right. But I think that's an opportunity to go, I'm focusing on the wrong thing, and I'm caring about the wrong part of the business, and I'm looking for validation and self-worth and all of that in entirely the wrong places. And I need to focus on the stuff that actually matters.
You have for those of you not watching the video, which is on YouTube, it'll be posted up there. You have a really relaxed, easygoing demeanor. Your voice is low. Malik was like that too.
Mm-hmm.
He just had this way of just kind of, is that you, or is that something that you kind of learned to settle into yourself as? I feel like I'm a pretty high-strung guy. I get real, I'm all over, but I'm comfortable doing that.
Right.
How important is that kind of like easygoing,
I think
be the tortoise kind of thing?
I think that was what I grew up with. I think I had an example of it in my dad, who I think I heard him raise his voice a handful of times, maybe ever. Yeah. And in fact, the fact that he was so kind of, even tempered and stuff, all he had to do was like raise his voice a little or get a little bit of an edge in his voice, and you were like, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm stopping doing that now. Right. And I've seen, family movies of me as a kid, and I'm the serious, quiet, thoughtful, perhaps depressed child. I wasn't depressed as a child, but that's always kind of been my thing. And it's funny because it often is masking great anxiety and huge amounts of discomfort, especially in like big social situations and stuff.
That's interesting because it comes through in your roles that I've seen. You have this this presence, this control of the moment, and like a calmness. But what you say about the anxiety, that's interesting. And I'm the opposite. I have that same anxiety. So my anxiety comes out with like fill the room, be bigger than the room, talk to everyone in the room, and that settles my social. Where I see people, friends like you, who are like, I'm gonna just be me and cool and chill. And I almost, in a way, it's like my protective nature of like, okay, I see that, so I'll be here and I'll take attention, right, so that other people can just be comfortable and cool. But it's also dealing with my own anxiety about being there.
Yeah, I that makes total sense to me.
And why you're in comedy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's I was
that
saying.
is comedy.
I was saying earlier, like stand up to me is the single most terrifying thing any individual could ever do.
It really is.
You know, I can't imagine. And it was interesting because when I did Hedwig, because it is, you know, in some ways a one-person show, even though, you know, there's the band there and the Yitzhak character and it's scripted. Right. But a lot of it also is improv and, you know, there's a lot of built-in room for that. And we did, when I was first doing it, we did a show, a New Year's Eve show with Boy George and Culture Club at Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow.
And the Hedwig Band opened for Boy George and Culture Club. So everybody there was there for this 80s flashback weekend thing. And we were this, you know, it wasn't super well known at the time. It was known downtown, but not on that scale. Right. And so we were this weird cross-dressing punk, you know, band that most of the people there had no idea who we were, didn't know any of the songs, and we had hecklers. And one of the great things about the acoustics in Radio City is you can hear what they're saying to you.
Oh, that's funny.
And I would have shriveled up and died if it was me and my band, or me as me. But with the protective armor of Hedwig and her, you know, her attitude and then the literal, you know, the costume armaments, I was like, had witty comebacks and
it takes over.
It took over, and I thought this must be what it feels like for people who are able to do this as themselves, as a stand-up, and you know, it's incredibly powerful. I still know that I couldn't do it myself, but it was amazing to have an insight for a second into how that must be.
Well, I want
we have to get to our game,
right? But we have to talk about Marvel because this man is part of the Marvel universe.
We did the Marvel box.
This is why.
Wait, before Marvel. Okay, so we have two quick things, but give me a quick answer to this. You know, pursuing your dream, anybody out there following whatever dream that is, and everybody's answer to this is probably different. But what is one or many sacrifices that maybe you had to make to pursue this for as long as you have and find these successes?
Well, I think in my business, the sacrifice has been in a social life and a personal life. You know, it's not being able to say I will be at, you know, my family's birthday parties or my, you know, my girlfriend's important events or, you know, just and the hardest thing is your, you know, your partner or your family accepting that, well, you know, he's just not necessarily going to be there. And that really hurts. That it's wonderful and lovely that they give you that latitude, but it almost makes you feel worse that, you know, they accept that they can't count on you to be places all the time.
But the focus that you do and the dedication is part of the success. I mean, you have to. Yeah. I mean, I think I've said it on the podcast before. I had friends in finance who
I was going to say,
they would. You didn't see them
lawyers,
for 10 years. Where are you guys? And guess what? They're
Yeah.
on their yacht right now because they busted their ass for.
Yeah, but they also
15
missed
years.
their children's
They
early
did.
years.
Or,
Like,
you know,
but-
soldiers, you know, who leave the
Yeah, those
country
videos
for,
kill
know.
me.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
don't get me started.
Go,
So anyway,
keep it. Thank you for
Marvel
that, yeah.
Universe.
Yes.
So, you know, he's got the T in EGOT. I told him they need to rename it and add an M to it. MEGOT or EGOT M. Because Marvel Universe needs to be a part of it.
Okay.
You know
I don't
what
know
an
what
EGOT
you're talking
is?
about, but
you don't know what an EGOT is? You can't be an EGOT. Are you an actor?
Grammy,
Oscar,
Can
Tony.
I just get a J-O-B? How about that? I'll
right?
put the B as J-O-B
well,
actor.
he's got the T in
What are you
EGOT.
talking about?
And now an M for Marvel Universe.
Marvel.
And I kind of have a
Ant-Man
G.
and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp.
You have a G?
Both.
Wait, you have a Grammy?
Yeah, I mean, now when cast recordings, like when a Grammy, the principal singers on them get their own Grammy statues. Back in the day.
So he's got a G and a T and an M. Cool. Okay, so talk to us about Marvel.
Marvel. Yeah.
I got to be in the Ant-Man and the Wasp. I played Edwin Starr, who readers of the Marvel comics will know becomes Egghead later. We'll see if that actually happens to me or not.
Was that something that was discussed? Like, listen, you're going to do this movie, but and maybe you can't say
no,
this.
No, man,
but
they don't tell you. They didn't even tell me what my role was until I got there.
Stop.
Wait, so you did get hired for? You didn't audition or anything? They were just like, we're hiring?
That one, because I had been auditioning for who's Thanos's
the
sidekick,
the Black Order.
Yeah, the
four bad guys.
No, it was, I can't remember what character it was, but he's the kind of skeletal looking guy.
One of the Black Order.
Yeah, and he was going to be a motion capture thing, and it was just going to be animated on you, and they kept saying over, and I auditioned for it a number of times, and they kept saying, "No, you understand, like it won't be your face, it'll be your voice, but it won't be your face, but it will be your movements." Do you have a problem with that? Which I guess for some actors, they're like, no, I want it to look like me, kind of, or I want it to be recognizable as me. And I was like, that sounds awesome. That sounds like the coolest job ever. So I went a long ways down the road with that, and in the end, it didn't get the job. But I guess I'd been, in front of them enough that when they were casting this thing, they're like, we've seen enough of him already. We'll just offer him this job. But neither my agents nor me were told what the character was. It's just like, you have a part, it'll work these days, you'll go.
Here's what you need to know.
So did you know it was Ant-Man and Wasp at least?
I knew it was Ant-Man and Wasp.
Okay.
But I didn't know what character it was. But it was funny because my agents then started like digging through Marvel archives and stuff and trying to figure out like what character could it be.
We got the Silver Surfer here. He's there.
Well, he was saying earlier, Josh, before you arrived, that when he was there to film, they were also filming Infinity War.
Right.
So Paul Rudd would be running between sets
Oh my
on both of
gosh.
those. Yeah, Josh, you missed a whole
he
Marvel
cool?
conversation.
I mean, I'm sure he's cool. I hear he's cool.
He's the best. He's really, really great.
And
guy.
were you a nerd growing up? Were you a comic book nerd at all?
Oh yeah,
Marvel?
I was totally a Marvel guy. Even though, I mean, I'm also proud that I have a foot in the DC world also with Gotham.
Oh, right, the TV show.
Pig.
Listen, I got it. Oh, which is an epic role as well. I have to say, not that I had anything to do with this. I didn't. I'm just whatever. But like after The Dark Knight Rises came out, I was like, everyone was so hot on this property's done now. What are we gonna do? It was like so popular before really the Marvel stuff really started picking up. And I was like, you know what they need to do? And I had this whole like diatribe. They need to take all the villains and they need to create the villains as the main characters. And you just have like Jim Gordon. Before I literally plotted out that whole thing, and then someone's like, you should write that down. I'm like, I'm not writing it down, like whatever. And then like a year later it came out, I was like, I should have wrote that down. That was cool too, though. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job on that.
Good job.
I mean, but I was
Well
a
done.
Marvel. I was a Marvel kid growing up. I was a Spider-Man kid. Big time.
That's just cool.
Well,
I mean, it's just got to be. That's a little checkbox.
Not a mini, that's
thrill.
huge.
No, but in your brain,
it's
you're
a
like, I'm
huge
not
thrill for me.
Ant-Man, but I'm like in this. Like, I don't care who.
Look, if I was an
role is.
extra in a Marvel movie,
I would
it
have
be
died on
huge.
screen. My friend got killed in the Daredevil thing. I was like, you're the coolest person ever.
My biggest thrill was the knowledge that Stan Lee approved, because he like had to sign off on everything.
Right.
Somebody, at some point said, held up a picture of me or something and said, "This guy," and he was like, "Yeah."
That's
and
awesome.
he saw, he was around still when it came
Can we
out, so
change
he
the
would have
title
seen
of this
the cut.
episode? We have a Marvel actor on the show today.
Well, and he said his character's not necessarily dead.
gone.
So
I mean,
we're
not
all
in the
hoping.
comics he would.
I mean, look, if you look at Endgame, if you saw Endgame, and whether or not I'm not spoiling anything, I mean, there are the scenes towards the end where like everybody's on screen. Like if they're able to do that, they have the foresight for that. Anything can happen.
Well, so
Exactly.
I did a partnership with Brisk and Black Panther,
Uh-huh.
and I was able to go to the Marvel office to read the script just because they were
wow.
letting us do that. But we had to give everything, like put our purse and our
Take
phone
your underwear
at
off.
the-
Yeah,
But like
I would have read it naked just on purpose.
But I think I did it before I was so into
I
all
do
the
that
Marvel.
anyway.
yeah, right.
But I did it before I was so into all the Marvel movies.
Right.
And I remember I was in the room and Thor's hammer was in there. And at the time, it was like, all right. But now I'm like, damn it.
The
Wish I
guy
appreciated
that's here for Mini Hulk is reading the script butt naked. Is that a problem? No, just leave him alone and give him a towel.
Oh, my God. Well, thank you, Michael, so much. We normally do a game, but because I was worried we wouldn't have enough time to ask you everything we wanted to ask you, I just do a quick Q&A with
Okay.
you. And I based it on the quote that you are arguably one of the most versatile leading men on Broadway.
And
that was a playbill, I think, said that.
I think that's right.
Which Michael wrote because we write our own bios.
Anyway.
You ever
That
have
I
to
didn't.
do that when they, especially earlier in your career, like
Writing your own bios.
and you're
yeah.
writing your own in the third person.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Cerveris is a
Arguably multi-talented.
Okay. First question. Your favorite Broadway role to date?
that I've played.
Yes.
Probably Bruce in Fun Home. I mean, it's a little bit sort of always the last one you did, but I think that that meant so much to me on every level: creative, artistic, social, political, everything. Yeah.
What about your most difficult role?
I guess probably playing George Balanchine in Nikolai and the Others at Lincoln Center because I had met him. My sister was one of the last ballerinas that he took into the company, and I knew a lot of dancers who had actually known him who were going to be seeing the show, so I felt a huge responsibility.
What about favorite film role, TV role?
I really enjoyed playing Professor Pig. That was probably like the most fun I had doing something because it was just so outrageous.
Did they give you a lot of freedom to create that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted. That was another thing that was really, made me nervous because I knew people had very strong feelings about, as is true of a lot of comic characters. They have really strong feelings about who that character is and what's
What it should be
character
like.
really
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Although now that I think about it, that might not actually. It might not be Professor Pig. It might be September and Fringe, maybe because I got to spend so much more time with him, and I'm so proud of that.
Quick
whole
question.
Show.
Do you consider yourself, quick answer, dramatic actor, comedic actor? Do you have a definition?
Dramatic more than comedic,
Okay.
definitely.
Go.
Your dream role?
I'm so bad at this. Because I don't, like I was saying with my career, like I don't dream forward that way.
Okay,
so.
is there a role that you wish in the past that you...
Like a dream role that's already happened.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I would have loved
I would have said Sweeney Todd, but I got to do it, so.
Look at you.
Lucky
you know.
bastard. All right, dream co-star. You can't say Josh Hyman.
Well, then, like, where
all
do
right,
I
good.
go
Say
from
Josh
there?
Hyman. Yay.
Josh Hyman.
Who's
In a
the
Marvel
dream?
movie.
Anything, any particular of any medium. Dream co-star.
Ed Harris is one of my favorite actors. Robert Duvall.
Okay.
And I met you both the same night. That's so weird.
You met Ed Harris that same night?
No, Robert Duvall.
Oh, Robert Duvall.
I
Yeah,
answered
yeah.
this question with
Oh,
Danny
that's right.
Daniels last week, and my wife is still giving me a hard time about that. So, dream co-star.
Oh my God! All right, if you weren't an actor, what would you be doing?
I'd be working maybe on a horse farm, or doing something like carpentry, something. where
Driving
you-
a truck underwater.
driving a truck on the way full of dolphins on the way
Were there a lot
to
of
a John
horses
Denver
in
concert.
West Virginia?
No, I didn't. I only recently kind of discovered horses. I was working when I was in Pittsburgh, working on Mindhunter. I started volunteering at this horse farm that does equine therapy that uses horses to work with kids and veterans, and it's just the most incredible thing. And horses are just amazing animals, and I just took such delight in. I said to them, I'd like to learn. I don't really know much about horses. I'd like to learn from the ground up. And they're like, okay, here's a shovel.
Right.
No, you said not the back, the ground.
But it was. I looked forward to getting up at 7 a.m, going and literally shoveling shit for
Right.
a couple hours, but had such a sense of accomplishment at the end of that, and then the next day I would go work on Mindhunter for the day and play an FBI guy and work with David
I bet
Fincher
your
and all
mind's
that.
a little there, though. It's keeping you calm,
It
right?
totally
it's like in
was.
the
Yes,
back, your
no.
little therapy.
Absolutely.
I grew
yeah.
up around horses. I didn't have any,
Oh, did
but
you?
like in camps and just neighborhood where I grew up, there were horses around. So in your mind, you're like, okay, these are just, they're there. There they are,
Right.
right? And then fast forward, 25, 30 years, and then I'm at my sister's wedding, and they had this gigantic gigantic, like the horse that from the Budweiser commercials type horses.
Clydesdale.
And I'm standing Clydesdale, and I'm standing there with my son in my arm, looking, and I'm like, this is a gigantic animal. This isn't a horse in the book. They're huge, massive animals. So for them to be like pretty docile for the most part, you know, and then to be able to touch, it's like it blew my mind. I was like, it just really blew my mind.
Well, and Michael, shoveling shit is pretty much a metaphor for what most of us do.
Which is where the Jobs Blow podcast was born out of. Shoveling shit.
And on that note, thank you.
Real quick, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Quick answer.
Oh.
HR question you might not have ever
This man does not do quick.
No, I don't. I'm so sorry. That's why I can't do comedy. In the same place, just a little further down the road, I think.
Okay. Cool. Right. Thank you so much.
Do you want to share your social handles?
We will, but I just want to say thank you for patient. We had a little delay today, for hanging out, for telling us your story, for hopefully inspiring other people in their pursuit of their dreams, and kind of just hearing what goes into the journey and, you know, the goods and bads, the ups and downs.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for responding to my tweet and coming here.
Debbie Gibson, will you just respond? Just come on the Jobs Blow podcast.
No, seriously, Michael. I don't know what it is. You're a fabulous human being, so thank you so much.
What are your social media handles or anywhere we can find you?
Instagram is at Michael Cerveris. I'm on Facebook. I don't use Twitter much anymore, really.
But he did too.
And Cerveris is Cerveris.
Right. And my band is Loose Cattle.
Okay.
Loose Cattle
what kind of music
band.
is that?
Americana, you know.
Jack's going to open for him.
You know what's great, too, about doing that is, like, it allows fans, I think, to be to follow you for different reasons. Like, here he is on Broadway, and I can get to watch him in Mindhunter or some other show, and here's his album I can take with me. I think it's both your art, but it's also commercially, you know, you're giving them things to latch on to and follow you.
Sometimes I feel like if I had just like stuck with one thing and like mined that completely, maybe I would have gotten further in one area, but I'm interested in too many different things.
Further in one. You have 2 Tonys.
Hey, the guy's trying to open a horse farm. Would you leave him alone?
Lou. Okay.
With the dolphins.
All right. With that.
One dolphin in a tank just swimming back and forth, and the horse is going like this. I don't know why he's
I can't work with this.
All right. Well, thank you again. We're at Jobs Blow Podcast, at Jobs Blow.
Yeah, jobsblow.com. At Jobs Blow Podcast everywhere. At Mr. Josh Hyman, MrJoshHyman, and you are?
At Bree Haaswan.
She hates telling people that. But hey, if you like the show, if you like the podcast, if you have questions, please just like, tweet, review us, share with your friends, listen word of mouth. That's the way this gets out. So really appreciate if you're in a mental institution, just scream out, oh my gosh, that'd be really awesome. But just anywhere, please talk to people and follow Michael as well. And he's got a lot of projects coming up, and it's very exciting. So thanks again.
Yes, everybody watch Mindhunter season 2.
Yeah.
And Jack, do you have anything to add?
No.
Love you, Jack. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Suit and tie, and I'd rather die than work 9 to 5. And I'm too fly for my suit and tie, and I'd rather die than work 9 to 5, and that's why I don't wanna go to work. I just wanna chill and play all day, look 'em dead in the face and say, I wish I could just be still asleep while you work.